Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Kendra Pope, and today we're going to talk about fasting. There was a recent publication that showed that dogs that only ate once a day lived longer and healthier lives than dogs that ate multiple times a day. Now this was really shocking to a lot of people, and they couldn't believe that this was true. So how could this be possible that dogs that were only fed once a day lived longer and healthier lives? Now, if you're new to fasting, there's a lot of really interesting research out there in the human space, and we're starting to get much more in the animal space that shows us all the things that fasting can do and what your body can do for itself when it is in a fasted state. So when there is no food in your system, when there is no glucose spikes in your system, what happens in your cells that then can change and can help with health and longevity? Well, what we know is that when there is no food and no digestion happening and going on, that the cleanup crew turns on. Basically that the normal systems in your body that go in to take care and eliminate damaged, diseased, cancerous cells can turn on and accomplish cell death, which is called autophagy. This is a word that you may often see when you go looking up about information about fasting, and basically what it is it's our internal cleanup crew. So what can happen during this rest and digest phase is our parasympathetic nervous system turns on. And what that is that's the nervous system component that we have that is all of the healing properties, and that's normally on when we're sleeping, where our cells are doing the hard work of eliminating byproducts and toxins and damage so that when we wake up the next day we can be ready to go. The other really cool thing that happens when that nervous system is turned on and during those times of rest and digest there are certain things like tumor suppressor genes that can turn on, that if we're not in that state, they're not active. And so not only from a cancer prevention and a health and longevity perspective, but we can also start talking about this in the active cancering patient space as well. So we know, and there's a lot of interesting data in people, that these types of techniques of fasting and only feeding once a day help for prevention. But when we talk about patients who have cancer, both human patients and animal patients, we actually have data that doing this restricted feeding can also be helpful. So there are studies that show when cancer cells are actually restricted from getting the glucose, the sugar that all of our food that we eat breaks down to, not just carbohydrates, but all of our food breaks down to, that they actually become more sensitive to the chemo and radiation treatment that's being delivered to them than if they were in a state of where they had that glucose. We also know that when we do that and we limit that glucose distribution to them and we don't give them that sugar during times of treatment, that it actually can help reduce toxicity of the normal cells. So what that means is that we have evidence both in people and actually in dogs who are undergoing chemotherapy and radiation therapy, that if they go into those cancer treatments in a fasted state, that actually those cancer cells are more sensitive while their normal cells are less sensitive, and they actually are protected from the side effects of chemo and radiation therapy. So when we say fasting, what does that actually mean? Well, that's something that's still being defined both on the human side and on the animal side. And there's actually many different types of fasting protocols that would be appropriate, and this is absolutely not going to be a one-size-fits-all type of process, and definitely something that should be involved with the help of your veterinarian. Even on the human side, there's a lot of different recommendations, even between genders, between male and female fasting, because of the differences in their hormones and their cycling and their balancing. So what are some of the most common types of fasting strategies that could be considered for a pet? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that this is safe medically, and that's where your veterinarian comes in. Because there are some conditions like diabetes and the use of insulin, some cats who maybe are overweight, other types of medical conditions or pharmaceutical drugs that your pet may be on where this might not be appropriate. So before you ever consider doing any changes in fasting protocols, you must talk to your veterinarian. But what some of the most common practices are either this once a day feeding, which was mentioned in this paper, or a 16-8 protocol. And what that means is that you only feed in this narrow 8-hour window, and then you fast for a 16-hour window overnight. Now, a lot of times when I talk to pet parents about this, they say to me, oh my gosh, how could I ever do that? How could I be eating food while my pet wasn't? This is something that you might be interested in checking out for yourself and maybe do it together. I oftentimes suggest that the family does the fast together because we know it's just as good for us as it is for them, as long as it's medically healthy for you to do so. But these are some simple techniques that even if you do them a few times a month, we have evidence to show that they can be beneficial because you're allowing more time for that cleanup crew to come in. You're allowing more time for all of that autophagy to occur, those damaged, those cancerous, those hurt cells to get cleaned up and cleared out of the body. I hope that that was helpful. I know that fasting is a really interesting topic right now that a lot of people are talking about. I hope you learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.